the Easy Speak podcast.
Learn English through real conversations.
Hello, and welcome back to the Easy Speak podcast. I am so glad you are here with us today.
Hey everyone, welcome. If this is your first time listening, you picked a really good episode to start with.
We say that every time, Daniel.
Because it is always true, Sophia.
Fair enough. So today we are talking about something that almost every English learner thinks about at some point, and it is one of those goals that feels almost magical when you first hear about it.
Thinking in English.
Exactly. Thinking in English. Not translating, not going through your native language first, just thinking directly in English, the way a native speaker does.
It sounds almost impossible when you're just starting out, right? Like your brain has been using one language your whole life, and now you're asking it to just switch?
Right. And a lot of learners feel frustrated because they try to think in English, but they keep going back to their first language without even realizing it.
It happens automatically. Your brain is not being lazy. It's just doing what it has always done.
Exactly. And that's actually a very important point. We are not going to blame our brains today. We're going to understand them.
I like that. Understanding before criticizing. Good advice for brains and for people.
Always. So today we want to talk about what it actually means to think in English, why it matters, how your brain works when it learns a language, and what you can really do in your daily life to start making that shift.
No grammar lessons today, no textbook exercises, just a real conversation about how language lives inside us.
Beautifully said. Okay, let us begin at the beginning. What does it even mean to think in English?
Good question, because when someone first hears that phrase, they might imagine it's like flipping a switch, like one day you wake up and suddenly your brain is just running in English.
And for a very small number of people, it does happen kind of like that. But for most of us, it's much more gradual. It builds slowly over time.
So, thinking in English doesn't mean you never use your native language again. It means that in certain moments, certain situations, English starts to come first.
Yes, you might be walking down the street and you see a dog and you think, oh, that dog is so fluffy. Not in your language first, in English first.
That's a great example. Small moments, but those small moments add up.
They really do. And there's a word I want to introduce here. The word is automatic. A-U-T-O-M-A-T-I-C. Automatic.
What does automatic mean?
Automatic means something happens on its own, without effort, without thinking about it. Like breathing. You don't decide to breathe every few seconds. Your body just does it automatically.
So thinking in English becomes automatic when it starts to happen without you having to try.
Exactly. You stop forcing it and it just flows. And that's the dream, right?
That's the dream. But let's talk about why it is so hard first, because I think a lot of listeners right now are nodding and thinking, yes, but how? How do I get there?
Okay, so let's think about what happens in your brain when you learn a second language. When you were a child, you learned your first language by experiencing the world at the same time. You saw a cat, someone said cat, and your brain connected the sound to the thing directly.
No translation needed, because there was nothing to translate from yet.
Right, but when you learn English as an adult or even as a teenager, your brain already has a whole system built. Your native language is deeply wired in.
So when I see a cat and I want to say it in English, my brain goes to the word in my language first, then finds the English word, and then says it.
That's the translation process, and it's not wrong, it's just slower, and it creates a kind of gap between thinking and speaking.
I remember this feeling so well when I was learning. Someone would ask me a question and I needed like 3 extra seconds just to process everything.
And those 3 seconds feel like forever in a real conversation.
They really do. You start sweating a little.
Just a little. So the goal of thinking in English is to remove that translation step, or at least to make it much faster and much less conscious.
And how do we do that? Because this is the part everyone wants to know.
Okay, so there are a few things that really help you start thinking in English, and we're going to talk through all of them. But first, I want to say something important. This process takes time. It's not something you can rush, and that's okay.
I know some people will hear that and feel a little disappointed. We all want the fast solution.
We do, and I understand that. But I think there's something freeing about accepting that it's a journey. Once you stop expecting it to happen overnight, you can enjoy each small step.
That's a really healthy mindset, and it actually makes the process faster in a strange way, because you're less stressed and your brain learns better when it's relaxed.
Completely true. There's actually research on this. Stress reduces your ability to absorb new language. When you're anxious, your brain is focused on protecting you, not on learning new vocabulary.
So being kind to yourself is not just nice, it's also scientifically effective.
Exactly. So the first thing that helps you start thinking in English is something called immersion. Immersion. Immersion.
Immersion. What does that mean?
Immersion means surrounding yourself completely with something. If you imagine diving into a pool, you're surrounded by water on all sides. Immersion in a language means surrounding yourself with that language as much as possible.
So listening to English podcasts, watching English videos, reading in English, even changing your phone settings to English.
Yes, all of those things. The more your brain is exposed to English throughout the day, the more natural it starts to feel. It's like water. The more you're in it, the more your body adjusts.
I love that image. So even just having English playing in the background while you cook dinner or clean your house is a form of immersion.
Absolutely. It might seem passive, but your brain is still absorbing sounds, rhythms, intonation patterns. It's doing quiet work even when you're not focused.
I didn't think about it that way. So my brain is working even when I think I'm just relaxing.
Your brain is always working. It never really switches off, and language learning happens in both focused and relaxed states.
Okay, so immersion is the first thing. What's the second?
The second thing is something I call labeling your world. It's a very simple habit, but it's surprisingly powerful.
Labeling your world. What does that mean?
It means as you go through your day, you name things in English inside your head. You pick up your coffee cup and you think, this is a mug, it's warm, the coffee is strong today.
Oh, I like this. So you're not doing exercises, you're just observing your life in English.
Exactly. You're training your brain to reach for English words first. And it starts very simply, just nouns, just basic descriptions, and slowly it grows.
I imagine this could feel a little silly at first, like you're a child again, pointing at things and saying their names.
It can feel that way, but you know what? Children learn language faster than adults because they're not embarrassed. They just absorb and repeat and absorb and repeat.
That's a really good point. We adults bring all this self-consciousness to learning. Kids just do it.
And there's a word for that self-consciousness that gets in the way. The word is inhibition. Inhibition. Inhibition.
Inhibition. What does that mean exactly?
Inhibition is the feeling of holding yourself back, not wanting to make mistakes, feeling embarrassed or shy. It's the inner voice that says, don't try that, you might get it wrong.
Oh, I know that voice very well. It has stopped me from speaking so many times.
Everyone knows that voice. But here's the truth. The learners who improve fastest aren't the most intelligent ones. They're the ones with the least inhibition. They try, they fail, they laugh, and they try again.
So the willingness to look a little foolish is actually a learning superpower.
It absolutely is. And that's something worth sitting with for a moment. Think about the times you didn't speak because you were afraid of making a mistake, and then think about what you could have learned if you had just spoken anyway.
That's a little uncomfortable to think about, but in a good way.
Learning often lives in that small, uncomfortable zone, not painfully uncomfortable, just slightly outside what feels safe and familiar.
Okay, so we have immersion, labeling your world, and reducing inhibition. What else?
Another really powerful practice is something called inner monologue training. This is where you practice narrating your own thoughts and actions in English inside your head.
So, like you're at the supermarket and you're thinking to yourself, okay, I need to find the pasta. Aisle 3, I think. This kind of thing.
Exactly like that. Instead of thinking in your native language, you gently redirect those thoughts into English, even just a few times a day.
It's like having a little English radio station playing inside your mind.
I love that image. And at first, it will feel slow and effortful. You might not know all the words you want to use, and that's fine. Just use the words you have.
What happens if you don't know a word in English? Do you just stop?
No, you either use a simpler word that you do know, or you briefly go to your native language, get the word, and then move on. The important thing is not to give up on the English thought completely.
So it's more about keeping the flow than being perfect.
Always. Fluency is about flow, not perfection. And I think this is something many learners get backwards. They think they need to be perfect before they can be fluent, but actually it works the other way around.
Fluency first, perfection later.
Or more accurately, fluency now, improvement always.
I like that better. Improvement always. Not perfection as a destination, but improvement as a continuous process.
That is a beautiful way to say it, actually. And that mindset shift alone can change your whole relationship with English.
Can we talk about something related? Because I think a lot of our listeners feel a very specific frustration. They can understand English quite well. When they listen to podcasts like this, they follow along. When they read, it makes sense. But when they try to speak or think in English, it all falls apart.
Yes, this is called the gap between receptive and productive skills. Receptive skills are listening and reading. You are receiving information. Productive skills are speaking and writing. You are producing language.
And the receptive side usually develops faster.
Because you're not being judged, you just absorb. But when you produce language, suddenly there's pressure, and that pressure activates all that inhibition we talked about.
So the gap is normal. It is not a sign that something is wrong with you.
It is completely normal. Almost every learner experiences it. The way to close that gap is not to study more grammar, it's to produce more, to speak more, to write more, even imperfectly.
Which is why podcasts like this one are valuable not just for listening, but for inspiring people to actually use English more.
Exactly. We hope every episode gives you a little push to go and speak, go and write, go and think in English a little more than yesterday.
All right, let us take a moment and talk about something I find really fascinating, the emotional side of thinking in another language, because this is something I experienced personally.
Tell me more.
When I'm speaking or thinking in English, I sometimes feel like a slightly different version of myself. A little more, relaxed maybe. Or like the emotions are a little further away.
That's actually a documented phenomenon. Research has shown that people often feel emotions less intensely when they process them in their second language.
So I was not imagining it.
Not at all. Our first language is connected to our deepest emotions, our childhood, our identity. When we use a second language, there's a slight emotional distance. It can make difficult things feel a little easier to discuss.
That's fascinating, and also a little strange when you think about it.
It is. Language shapes how we feel, not just how we communicate. And there's a word for the strong connection between language and identity. The word is mother tongue. Mother tongue.
Mother tongue. That's such a poetic phrase. What does it mean exactly?
Mother tongue is another way of saying your first language, your native language, the language your mother spoke to you, the language of your earliest memories and feelings.
So when we ask our brain to think in English, we're actually asking it to step a little bit away from the mother tongue.
Yes, and that can feel strange. It can feel like you're not fully yourself in the new language, at least at first.
Does that feeling go away?
It changes. As you become more fluent, your second language starts to feel more like home. You develop an emotional connection to it. You find words in English that express things your native language might not have exact words for.
And suddenly, you feel richer in some way, like you have more tools to understand and express yourself.
Exactly. Bilingual people often describe this experience. They say that certain concepts, certain feelings are easier to express in one language than the other, and they get to choose.
That's actually a beautiful thing, not a loss, a gain.
Yes, learning a language is always a gain. Even when it's hard, even when you feel stuck, something is always growing.
Okay, so let's talk about some more practical things. We talked about immersion and labeling and the inner monologue. What about people who don't have many opportunities to practice? People who live in a place where English isn't spoken around them?
This is such a common situation, and the good news is that in the modern world, you can create an English environment almost anywhere.
Right, your phone, your laptop, the internet. There's so much English available if you look for it.
But I want to go beyond that and talk about something called English routines, building small habits into your daily life that are done in English.
Like what?
Simple things, keeping a diary in English, even just 3 or 4 sentences a day about what happened, how you felt, what you're thinking about. That daily practice builds vocabulary and gets your brain used to organizing thoughts in English.
A diary. I love that idea because it's private. There's no audience, no pressure to be perfect.
No one's grading you, it's just you and the language, and it's a record of your growth. If you go back and read entries from 6 months ago, you'll probably be amazed at how much you've improved.
That's a nice reward, actually seeing your own progress.
Another English routine is talking to yourself. Now, this might sound strange.
Or slightly concerning.
Just slightly, but it's actually one of the most effective tools for developing fluency. When you're alone, in the shower, driving, cooking, try narrating what you're doing or thinking in English out loud.
So instead of just thinking, I'm making pasta, you say it out loud in English.
Exactly. And then you can expand. I'm making pasta for dinner. I usually add a lot of garlic. I think garlic makes everything better. And now you've had a little conversation with yourself in English.
That's actually kind of fun. And weird, but mostly fun.
It's both, but it works because hearing yourself speak English and your brain processing the sound of your own voice in English is very powerful for building confidence.
Because confidence in speaking comes from having spoken. You can't build confidence by only thinking about speaking.
Perfectly said. You have to do the thing to get comfortable with the thing. There's no other way.
Let me ask you something, Sophia. What do you think is the single biggest mistake English learners make when they're trying to learn to think in English?
Oh, that's a great question. I think about this a lot, and I think the biggest mistake is waiting. Waiting until they feel ready. Waiting until their grammar is perfect. Waiting until they have more vocabulary.
The waiting trap.
Yes, because the feeling of being ready never comes through waiting. It only comes through doing. And the people who are waiting are actually falling further behind, not getting closer to their goal.
Because language is a living thing. It only grows when it's used.
Exactly. A language that is only studied in notebooks stays in notebooks. A language that is spoken, thought in, written in, laughed in, cried in, that language becomes part of you.
That's beautifully put, and I think it connects to something we talk about a lot on this podcast, the idea that language learning is not just an academic exercise, it's a whole life experience.
It's deeply personal, and when you learn English, you're not just memorizing words, you're opening a door to a whole new way of seeing the world.
Which can be both exciting and a little overwhelming.
Completely. And it's okay to feel both of those things at the same time. Growth almost always feels that way, exciting and scary and uncertain and beautiful all at once.
Let's talk a little bit about the role of mistakes, because I know this is something that holds people back a lot.
Mistakes. Such a loaded word for so many learners.
Right. From a very young age, most of us are taught that mistakes are bad. You get a red mark on your paper, you feel embarrassed, and so you learn to avoid situations where you might make one.
But in language learning, mistakes are not just inevitable, they're necessary. They're data.
Data. Explain that.
When you make a mistake, your brain gets information. It notices that something didn't work, that the sentence sounded strange, that the word was used in the wrong context. And that noticing is actually a very important part of learning.
So every mistake is a message from the language to your brain.
Yes, the message is try again, slightly differently. And each time you try and adjust, you get a little closer to natural expression.
I want to share something. When I was learning, I used to be terrified of making mistakes in front of other people. And then one day, someone very fluent in English told me something that changed my perspective completely.
What did they say?
They said, "Nobody is secretly judging your English. Everyone is too busy worrying about their own performance. The person you think is judging you is actually thinking about what they're going to say next."
That's so true. We're all so caught up in our own experience that we have very little attention left over to judge others.
And even if someone does notice a mistake, what usually happens?
Usually nothing, or they gently correct it and move on. It's rarely as catastrophic as our fear makes it seem.
Our fear always makes the worst-case scenario seem more likely than it is.
And there's a word for this kind of exaggerated fear. The word is catastrophizing. Catastrophizing. It means imagining the worst possible outcome and treating it as if it will definitely happen.
Catastrophizing. Can you give an example?
Yes, so a learner thinks, if I say the wrong word, people will laugh at me, and they will think I am stupid, and I will never want to speak English again. That is catastrophizing, taking a small possible mistake and blowing it up into a disaster.
And the truth is almost always much more ordinary than the fear.
Almost always. The truth is usually you say a wrong word, nobody notices, or someone smiles kindly, and the conversation continues.
So reducing catastrophizing is actually important for language learning.
It is, because if your brain is busy imagining disasters, it cannot focus on the actual conversation happening in front of you.
Presence. You need to be present in the conversation.
Yes, and that is connected to something called flow state. A flow state is when you are so engaged in what you are doing that you lose track of time and self-consciousness disappears.
I have experienced this in conversations in my native language. You get so interested in what someone is saying that you forget to be nervous.
And the same thing can happen in English. When the topic is interesting enough, when you are genuinely engaged, the self-monitoring fades and the words come more naturally.
So finding topics you actually care about is a strategy, not just a nice thing.
Absolutely. This is why we always encourage learners to engage with English content that genuinely interests them, not content chosen because it seems educational, content chosen because it genuinely excites or moves you.
Because passion is fuel for attention, and attention is fuel for learning.
Perfectly said. If you love cooking, watch English cooking videos. If you love sports, follow sports commentary in English. If you love philosophy, listen to English discussions about philosophy.
Your interests are not a distraction from learning. They are the vehicle for it.
Yes. Let me share a word here that I think is really beautiful in this context. The word is curiosity. Curiosity.
We all know what curious means, but what is curiosity exactly?
Curiosity is the desire to know more, to understand, to explore. It is the feeling of wanting to dig deeper into something because it fascinates you. And curiosity is one of the most powerful learning tools that exists.
Because when you are curious about something, you naturally seek out more information about it. You read more, you listen more, you ask more questions.
And all of that seeking and asking and exploring happens in English, if you choose to do it in English. And suddenly, learning feels like following your natural interests rather than doing homework.
I want to ask about something a little different now. Dreams. Do you think it matters whether people dream in English?
Oh, this is one of my favorite topics. I get asked about it a lot.
What do you think?
I think dreaming in English is often seen as a kind of milestone, like a sign that you have really arrived, and it can be, but it is not the only sign.
Because dreaming is mostly outside our control.
Exactly. You cannot decide to dream in English. It happens on its own when your brain has absorbed enough of the language that it starts to use it even in sleep.
So if someone is not dreaming in English yet, that doesn't mean they're not making progress.
Not at all. There are people who speak English very fluently in daily life and still mostly dream in their native language. The brain has its own priorities during sleep.
But if you do start dreaming in English, it's a really interesting experience, right?
Very interesting. And for some people, it happens early in their learning journey. For others, it takes much longer. It's very individual.
I had my first English dream when I was on a trip to an English-speaking country. I was surrounded by English all day, and then at night, my brain just continued.
That makes a lot of sense. Intense immersion can trigger it. When your brain gets a big enough dose of the language, it starts processing it even during rest.
Which brings us back to immersion as a key strategy.
It always comes back to immersion. The more you surround yourself with English, the deeper it goes.
Okay, let's talk about something I think a lot of listeners are experiencing right now. They're listening to this podcast, they're understanding most of it, they're engaged, and they're thinking, why can I understand this conversation, but I still can't have a conversation like this?
This is such a real frustration, and it comes back to that gap between listening and speaking that we mentioned earlier. Let me try to explain it in a different way.
Please.
When you listen, you're working with the language that someone else has already organized for you. The words are there, the grammar is there, you just need to decode it.
Like reading a map that someone else has drawn.
Exactly. But when you speak, you have to draw the map yourself. You have to find the words, choose the right grammar, organize the ideas, and deliver it all at the same time, in real time, with another person waiting for you.
No wonder it feels harder.
It is harder, but here's the good news. Every hour of careful listening is building your internal map. You're collecting patterns, phrases, ways of saying things, and all of that material becomes available to you when you speak.
It's like building a library. Listening fills the shelves, speaking takes books off the shelves and uses them.
That's a wonderful image, and the fuller your library is, the more you have to work with when you speak.
So listening to this podcast right now is genuinely helping people become better speakers, even if they're not saying a word.
It absolutely is. Every moment of comprehension is a moment of construction. Your brain is building the architecture of English inside you.
And then one day, when you open your mouth, more of it is ready than you expected.
Exactly, and that can be a very pleasant surprise. You try to say something and a phrase comes out perfectly that you didn't even know you had stored.
Like pulling out a tool you forgot you owned.
Exactly like that. Okay, I want to talk about one more thing before we move toward the end of our episode, the role of attitude, because I think attitude is underrated in language learning.
Oh, completely underrated. Most people think language learning is about study hours and vocabulary lists and grammar drills, and those things matter, but attitude shapes everything.
What attitude do you think is most helpful?
I think the most helpful attitude is one of playfulness, treating English like a game, like an adventure, like something you explore with delight rather than something you master through suffering.
Playfulness. That's not a word people usually associate with serious learning.
And that's exactly the problem. We make language learning very serious and heavy, and when something feels heavy, we avoid it. But when something feels like play, we seek it out.
Children are the best evidence of this. They are the fastest language learners in the world, and they do it entirely through play. Entirely. No textbooks, no grammar explanations, just playing with sounds and words, and being corrected gently and trying again. And in a few short years, they're completely fluent.
So maybe the most important thing an adult learner can do is try to recapture a little of that childlike openness.
Yes. Not by being naive or ignoring the complexity of grammar, but by approaching mistakes with curiosity instead of shame, by celebrating small wins, by laughing at the funny errors instead of cringing.
I made so many funny errors when I was learning. I used to get them completely mixed up.
Those moments stay with you, and actually the emotional memory of a funny mistake helps you remember the correct version for longer.
Because laughter is a memory anchor.
It really is. Emotion, including joy and humor, helps the brain retain information. So laughing about your mistakes is not just kind, it is smart.
I love that. Laughing is smart. Let us put that on a t-shirt.
Let us.
Okay, so we have covered so much ground today. Immersion, labeling your world, inner monologue, reducing inhibition, managing catastrophizing, the importance of playfulness. Let me try to bring it all together.
Please, a summary would be wonderful.
The central idea of everything we've discussed today is this. Thinking in English is not something that happens to you when you are finally good enough. It's something you grow into, gradually, through consistent and joyful engagement with the language.
It is a practice, not a destination.
Yes, and every day you choose to engage with English, even for just a few minutes, you are moving in the right direction. The brain changes with use. It adapts, it rewires, and if you give it enough English, consistently and with enough enjoyment, it will start to reach for English first.
Not because you forced it to, but because it has become natural.
Exactly. Natural, not forced. Joyful, not painful. Gradual, not sudden.
And patient with yourself along the way.
Always. Self-compassion is not just an emotional virtue, it's a learning strategy. The kinder you are to yourself when you struggle, the faster you'll recover and try again.
I want to add one thing. Find your community. Find other learners, or find people who are further along in their English journey and spend time with them. Language grows in connection with other people.
Yes, we learn language to connect, and we learn it better when we are connecting. That's the circle.
Beautiful. Okay, before we close, we have our listener question for today.
Yes, and today's question is connected to everything we've been talking about. We would love to know, what is one small thing you do or will start doing to practice thinking in English in your daily life?
It could be anything. Labeling things in your kitchen, talking to yourself in the car, writing 3 sentences in a diary before bed.
Whatever it is, write it in the comments below, because sharing your commitment makes it more real, and you might also inspire someone else who's listening and wondering where to start.
We read your comments, we genuinely do, and hearing from you makes these conversations feel like a real community, not just a podcast.
So please share your thoughts, share your experience, share your one small step.
All right, we're getting close to the end of our time today, and honestly, I feel like I could keep talking about this topic for another hour.
Same, there's so much more to explore, and we will in future episodes. We're going to keep going deeper into the science and the human experience of language learning.
Because language is one of the most deeply human things there is, and learning a new one is one of the most courageous things you can do.
Courageous. I mean that. To put yourself in a space where you feel uncertain, where you might be misunderstood, where you have to try and fail and try again, that takes real courage.
So if you're on this journey, whether you're just starting or you've been at it for years, take a moment to recognize that. You're doing something hard and something beautiful.
And you're not alone. We're here every week with a new conversation, a new topic, new vocabulary, and the same hope that every episode makes your English a little more natural, a little more yours.
That's exactly it. A little more yours. Because the goal is not to sound like someone else. The goal is to sound like you in English.
Yes, your voice, your thoughts, your personality, just expressed in a new language.
And that version of you is already starting to emerge. Every word you understand, every sentence you manage to form, every moment you choose English over avoidance, that's you becoming more fluent.
So keep going, even on the hard days, especially on the hard days.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. It genuinely means a lot.
It really does. We love having you here, and we hope this conversation gave you something to think about and something to try.
Until next time, this is Daniel.
And this is Sophia.
From the Easy Speak podcast.
Keep listening, keep speaking, and keep growing.
See you in the next episode.
Goodbye for now.